Hi students, welcome to the discussions on the finite element methods. In previous lectures, we have seen how 1D analysis, 1D elements can be dealt for solving the 1D problems and their fundamentals. In today's class or in lecture, we shall see 2D analysis or 2D elements, 2D elements, right? Now, uh, basically, the given continuum, this given continuum may be split in, if at all this is a 2D structure with some appropriate thickness, then it can be discretized into 2D elements, 2D elements, right? However, the basic 2D element is a shape with bare minimum number of three sides, right? This is a triangle, fine. Then that is how, however, this triangle has only one, two, three sides only, and three corners, three nodes, right? Hence this is a triangle. Or the other basic shape is a rectangle, right? Now you can see one, two, three, four sides has four corners, right? Therefore there is also another basic shape. Accordingly, this element is what called 2D, three noded triangle, and accordingly this is what called 2D, four noded quadrilateral, right? In today's class we shall discuss the analysis using 2D, three noded constant strain triangle. This is called constant strain triangle, right? Now let us see the discussions here. This is how the 2D elements and its analysis. However, the area we already just discussed that the bare minimum number of sides is only available in triangle. Hence, that is how this element is sometimes a basic element, right? Similarly, another basic element is a rectangle with four sides, or quadrilateral. Quadri means four, lateral means sides or faces, right? That is all. Then in this class we shall see the discussions on 2D constant strain triangle, three noded triangle or constant strain triangle, right? Then here this element is called CST element also sometimes, because the strain displacement matrix D is a constant. It doesn't depends upon the local coordinate system xi, right? Hence the strain is a constant. Hence this is what called the constant strain triangle. Then we saw that for 1D two-noded elements also, the B matrix was constant, right? However, we also discussed there in the 1D analysis that three-noded B matrix, strain displacement matrix, was not constant matrix. It depends upon xi, minus 1 plus 2 xi divided by 2. That is how 1 plus 2 xi divided by 2 minus 2 xi. That is how the strain displacement matrix for the 1D three-noded element, advanced elements, right? Now, let us see if a 2D generalized body, like this, right? Any shape is having some boundary conditions like this. It may be some resting on some supports, right? And it may be subjected to traction forces like this, right? Traction forces on some surface, right? Right? And because this is already having some thickness T, and this entire area of this 2D continuum is capital A, and capital A, and we do have the thickness small t, which is very small compared to that of the other dimensions. Hence, this is called 2D continuum. If the thickness is also very large, then that is not 2D continuum. Then that will become a 3D continuum like this. You can see here length, breadth, depth, all are almost equally equal, almost here and there equal, are all are measurable quantities. Whereas here in a 2D continuum, the thickness is very small compared to that of the other x and y dimensions. And let capital V with the volume of that entire 2D continuum, which is area, total area multiplied by thickness, and let this continuum is acted upon by traction forces T on some surface, right? Anywhere, which is notated by capital T, which is so many kilonewton per meter actually, or Newton per mm as appropriate, because thickness is already there, hence that is Newton per mm square like that, right? And let total surface length is equal to capital L, and let the sulfate of this 2D continuum is acting at the CG of this shape, and that is how at the CG I am showing the sulfate is acting, which can be split into two coordinate directions x and y as small f to the subscript x and small f to the subscript y in two Cartesian coordinate directions, and let us say at different locations, let us say at some point I, right, a concentrated load or a point load is acting, which can be split into the Cartesian coordinate x and y directions as pxi, pyi respectively, right? Then, and even this attraction forces T, which is acting, sometimes it may be inclined to that xy plane like this, right? It can be split into its equivalent in x direction as well as its equivalent in y direction, tx and ty respectively, right? Therefore, we will now have both the forces in both the Cartesian coordinate directions, and let this continuum is having some boundary conditions, maybe some fixed, or maybe some hinged like this, right? Or hinged, or maybe just hinged like this, right? Or as appropriate, here it is on roller like this, roller, right? Maybe on roller, right? As appropriate, right? Any boundary condition may be there, right? Now this is how that 2D continuum generalized body is shown in Cartesian coordinate system, in Cartesian or global coordinate system, both are set, right? Then now I'll consider a point within this continuum, point P, whose coordinates in Cartesian coordinate system are given by x and y, small x, small y. Then that point can displace in x direction by an amount of u, and in y direction by an amount of v, right, respectively. That is how the displacements in Cartesian coordinate directions of the point P. Then that is how that displacement vector u is now given by 2 by 1 vector, which is uv. I'm showing uv transpose just for writing purpose. We'll write as a transpose so that we can avoid much of the spacing in writing, right? uv transpose, which is 2 by 1 matrix or vector actually, right? Similarly, the body force vector is a 2 by 1 vector which has two components x and y respectively, right? And similarly, the traction force vector can also be split into two coordinate directions x and y, which are tx and ty respectively, tx and ty, that is all, right? X and y component. Similarly, fx, fy. Similarly, uv, right? Or pxi, pyi. That is how the Cartesian coordinate, along the Cartesian coordinate directions, these forces, right? Then once I see that generalized body 2D continuum, right? Now I'll consider an infinitesimal small element having an area dA, therefore its volume is equal to dV, given by dA multiplied by its thickness. Its thickness is constant T, its thickness is constant T. Therefore, dV is equal to dA multiplied by T. And because of the displacement u and v at a point P within that element, we have the strain matrix given by epsilon is equal to 3 by 1 vector, which is epsilon x, epsilon y, direct strains along the two coordinate directions, and shearing strain mu xy transpose, which is 3 by 1 vector. Right? Corresponding to these strains, we do have the stresses, which is given by sigma 3 by 1 vector, notated by sigma, and this is given by sigma x, sigma y direct stresses along two Cartesian coordinate directions x and y, and the shearing stresses tau xy. Right? Then we already discussed what are the relations between the strain and the displacements in the previous videos or discussions. There, now I'll recall that the strain epsilon is given by now dou u by dou x, dou v by dou y, dou u by dou y plus dou v by dou x transpose. That is a 3 by 1 vector. And we also know that stress sigma is also written as d multiplied by epsilon, where d is called material property matrix or constitutive relation matrix or material matrix, and epsilon is equal to strain vector, and sigma is a stress vector, right? That is all. These are in general. Now let us move to the next subheading as a finite element modeling using 2D triangular elements, right? 2D triangular elements. Now let us say if I have a body, right, which is shown like this, right? If I want to discretize this 2D continuum, then I need to use 2D triangles for having this discretization process. Therefore, now first I'll discuss discretization. Means I'll divide this entire continuum into n number of elements like this. You can see that I'm having this first element, right, like this, the second element, third element, so on and so forth. This entire continuum is discretized in n number of small elements, right, which are called finite, means countable number, right, very small, right, finite elements, right. However, we already know that how the discretization should be done, that you should take care of the boundaries, right. Therefore, at the boundary, at least if at all there is a boundary, then that boundary should be catched entirely by one side. You cannot model the boundary in such a fashion that only half of the one side is having some support condition and rest of the half is not there with the support. That is not acceptable. If such is the case, you just split that element into another element like this, right, like this, right. Then that is one rule you need to satisfy. And other rule is that wherever the loads are acting, if all here there is a traction load, then the traction load must be acting on one side of that element. If not, what you do is you also take care of on the second element, right. Then in the second element, then if you require, even you can go for the third element also like this, right. Therefore, it is a more length, then you may go to the third element also. Then also you take care of this condition that wherever concentrated loads are acting like this, right. Here concentrated load is acting, means there you must have a node there. Let us say here at the intersection of this, I do have a concentrated load, right. Then there must be a node, right. And also at the CG of this 2D continuum where the body forces are acting, there also a node must be there, so that at that node this entire self weight will be acting, right. And this is how you carry on the discretization process. Students, I hope you are understanding how the discretization must be done, right? It should take care of all these requirements what I have explained just now, right? Once you do discretization process, then we'll give the node numbering, and as well as that is how I'll say the node numbers are given in counterclockwise direction so as to avoid singularity. That is how I'll say 1, 2, 3, right? Next 2, 4, 3, right? Maybe 4, 5, 3, right? Like this will give the node numbering. Then once node numbering is done, then we'll also do the element numbering. Maybe 1, 2, 3 is notated by element 1. Maybe 2, 4, 3 is notated by the element 2 dash 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 up to last element, nth element, right? Then that is how that node numbering will be done using this format, that at any ith node, the degrees of freedoms are now given by q to I minus 1 along x direction and q2i, right? That is how the degrees of freedoms, capital Q means degree of freedom along global coordinate direction, right? Then each node has a 2 degrees of freedoms, because this is a 2D element, therefore each node can either displace in x or y direction, like this, x or y, right? Then that is how these 3 nodes will have now 6 degrees of freedoms, right? That is how 2 at each node, each node. Therefore q1, q2, q3, q4, q5, q6 as shown here, right? That is how the node. Now I'll take a generalized element, which is shown here, right? Now I'll write the total degrees of freedom vector, right, or global degree of freedom vector, which is notated by capital Q and given by q1, q2 dash 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 up to qr or qn transpose, right? Now I'll consider one element out of these many number of elements. I'll consider this one element, for which now I'll propose the finite element formulations. If I'm taking one generalized one element, which is called the generalized element, right? That is how I'm showing one element along with the node numbers 1, 2, 3, which are given in counterclockwise direction, right? 1, 2, 3, and the degrees of freedoms along the first node as per this notation q2i minus 1, q2i, given by q1, q2. Why? Because q2i is 1, q2 multiplied by 1 minus 1 is equal to q1, q2 multiplied by I, 2, right? That is how, if you go to the second node, the degrees of freedoms are given by q3 along x direction, q4 along y direction, and for the last node along x it is q5, along y it is q6, is the displacement or deformation, right? Right? Whereas the generalized point P will have a displacement of u and v, which has the Cartesian coordinates as x and y respectively. This is how we are considering one element E. Now you can see that the node numbers are given counterclockwise direction, right? Then this is the element in Cartesian coordinate system, students, right? And the next step we will write element connectivity table, right? It establishes the relation between the element numbers and local degrees of freedom numbers with global degrees of freedom numbers. Right? That is how, if I consider an element, one element, it has 6 local degrees of freedoms, q1, q2 dash dash up to q6. Small q's represents local degrees of freedom. Capital Q's indicates the degrees of freedoms in global coordinate direction, right? In global coordinate direction, right? That is how that first element, global degree of freedom 1 is the local degree of freedom 1, right? Global degree of freedom 2 is local degree of freedom 2, so on and so forth, like that, right? For the second element, the local degree of freedom 1 is global degree of freedom 3, right? Similarly, the local degree of freedom 2 is global degree of freedom 4 dash dash, right? Dash dash, keeping in view the element nodes to which these are connected, right? That is how this element connectivity table will establish a relation between local and global degrees of freedoms, degrees of freedom. Now, and so we can write the nodal displacement vector or element displacement vector. Elements will have nodes. This element or nodal displacement vector notated by small q, q1, q2, q3, q4, q5, q6 transpose, which is 6 by 1 vector, which is 6 by 1 vector. Let us say this is notated by equation 1, and now I need to find the displacement uv at a point p, Therefore, how to get that? Now, for which I require shape functions. Right? You know what is the use of the shape functions? That these shape functions will be used to interpolate either displacements or the geometry, from the known displacements or from the known Cartesian coordinates x1 y1 dash dash up to x3 y3. Right? Hence, these Cartesian these shape functions are generally derived in local coordinate system or one, or it is also called intrinsic coordinate system, or it is also called non-dimensional coordinate system, or it is also called xi, eta, zeta space. All four are same. Right? Then let us see the master element. This is what previously we have seen the generalized element, students. Now I am seeing the master element. Element which has the node 1 along local x direction. That local x is now given by the xi direction, right? Local y is notated by eta direction, right? That is how node 1 is along xi direction, and node 2 is perfectly along eta direction, and node 3 is at the intersection of these two, right? At 0 0, right? And you please see that here, if I take this node 3 as horizon, if I move by 1 unit along purely xi direction, I'll reach the node 1, right? Now, in order to reach this node 2, I need to move in the vertical direction by 1 unit. Therefore, I'm moving along purely eta direction. Therefore, its coordinates in local coordinate system are for the node 2 0 1, whereas for the node 1 it is 1 0, as node 3 is 0 0 0 0. Then also we can say that this xi axis always has eta is equal to 0 as the equation of the line, right? Also, this eta axis, local y, eta axis has the equation of this line connecting node 2 and 3. The equation of this line connecting node 2 and 3 is given by xi is equal to 0. The equation of the line connecting node 3 and 1 is given by eta is equal to 0, and the equation of the line connecting node 1 3 or the side, that of this side, is given by, right, 1 minus xi minus eta is equal to 0, or xi plus eta is equal to 1. Both are same. That is how the equations of the three lines I have, right? So that they can be used in deriving the shape functions. You please see that here the non-dimensional coordinate system doesn't have any dimensions. Actually, in Cartesian coordinate system, this node 3 has in either mm or meters or inches or feet as appropriately x3 y3 and x1 y1 x2 y2 as the coordinates. But here we are not saying so. We are saying that it is just 1 unit or 0. Therefore, that is how this is called non-dimensional coordinate system. Students, I hope you are understanding this, right? Hence the name called non-dimensional or unit, 1 unit. That's it, right? Either I'll move in z direction by 1 unit, or in eta direction by 1 unit, or the lower bound is 0. I'll not move. Right? That is a non-dimensional coordinate system. Right? Then once I do that, then I'll try to derive. The shape functions, right? That is how I want to derive this first shape function node for node one, right? For node one, right? That is how my node one is there, right? You please see this, right? This is how node one, node three, sorry, node 2, node 3. That is how this is that node 1. This node 1 means if a unit load is applied at node 1, then this node will totally get 100% reaction or support reaction, right? It will not leave any part of that reaction or load to the other nodes 2 and 3. 2 and 3 means this is akin to that, like this, right? Therefore, if a load is applied, that is our entire 100%, entire 100% is captured by that, right? Like this, right? Let's see this, right? If a load is applied here, then that is how it will capture entire 100% load, right? That is how the shape, right? That is how one, this ordinate one, right? This picture, what I am showing here is like this, right? Node 1 will have 100% contribution at its own node, and it leaves 0%. You can see this is a sloping surface, like this, right? Sloping surface, right? Therefore, the surface is now shown here by this shaded area, right? That is how this shaded area, sloping surface, is the equation of this shape function n1, right? Then that is how this node 1 has n1 value is equal to 1 at its own node, and n1 value is equal to 0 at other nodes, Hence, using that, now I'll write the shape function in terms of Cartesian coordinates, this local coordinate system xi and eta, and here onwards I'll say only n1. n1 means n1 in terms of xi n as a function of xi eta only, right? Therefore, now how the shape function can be written, students? Mathematically, the shape function can be written as a product of the equations of the lines at which it keyses. I'm just repeating once again. It can be written as a product of the equations of the lines at which this shape function keyses, right? Therefore, now let us see where this shape function n1 will keys means it will become 0. This n1 will become 0 only along this line connecting 2 and 3. Means along eta axis, right? Along eta axis, we can say that xi is always 0. The equation of this eta axis is that xi is equal to 0. Means the shape function n1, as per this, can be written as the line. What is the equation of this line connecting 2 and 3 is xi is equal to 0. Therefore, just recall that xi equation of that line as a product of. It won't become 0 on other lines. Therefore, only just 1, right? Therefore, xi multiplied by some constant c1. For node 1, it is some constant c1, right? Then, however, this constant can be evaluated using the boundary conditions that its own node, that in local coordinate system at 1, 0, n1 is equal to 1. Therefore, substituting that here, now I'll get c1 is equal to 1. Back substituting, which I'll get in that previous equation, n1 is equal to xi. That is how the variation of the shape function, it has one ordinate at 1, 0, right? Whereas at a distance of xi, from the origin, this ordinate is equal to xi. That itself is xi. Right? This is xi. At a distance of xi, the ordinate is equal to xi. Right? That is how the variation of the shape function. Right? That is how the variation of the shape function. That is how it will vary. it will vary with 1 unit ordinate here, like this, 1 unit ordinate, like this, right? Here it is 1 unit, whereas at a distance of xi, it is only xi ordinate, right? Then similarly, now I'll derive the shape function 2, means that shape function 2 means that at n2 is equal to 1 at its own node 2, and it becomes 0 at other nodes 3 and 1 respectively. Hence n2 is equal to 0 at node 1 and 3 respectively. If it is becoming 0 at that at those nodes, therefore what is the equation of that line connecting these two nodes 1 and 3, that is lying along xi coordinate direction, means eta is equal to 0. Hence n2 is written as the product of the lines, or the line, the equation of the line, right? That is how this equation of the line I am recalling eta. There is no other line at which it becomes 0, as that multiplied by constant c2, right? I'll get n2. However, substituting that at its own node 0, 1, n2 is equal to 1. Now I'll get c2 multiplied by 1 is equal to 1. Therefore, c2 is equal to 1. Hence, n2 is equal to eta. That is the third equation. Now, in order to derive the third shape function, that is the second shape function derivation, right? Third shape function u. Now, if you apply the load at horizon node 3, then it will have 1 unit ordinate and it leaves 0 force to the other nodes, right? That is how the variation, this inclined surface is node 3 shape function n3, right? Therefore, means here for node 3, if you want to write the shape function, the equation of the line connecting 1 and 2 is 1 minus xi minus eta. Therefore, you just recall that, you multiply with constant c3, and substitute that at its own node 0, 0, n3 is equal to 1. Therefore, substituting with, now I'll get 1 is equal to c3 multiplied by 1, or say c3 is equal to 1, or n3 is equal to 1 minus xi minus eta is the shape function of the third node. That is how it is also shown in a 3D fashion, for the third node, right? Then once I derive this, even sometimes we may use as an alternative this local coordinate system, area coordinate system also, to derive the shape functions, right? There what we'll do is we'll consider this point P where this load is applied, which has coordinates x and y. Then now you join this node 1 with that of this point P. Similarly, join this node 2 and node 3 with this point P. Then opposite to this node 1, whatever the triangle is formed, right? Connecting 2 and 3 and point P, triangle 2, 3, P. That area is notated by A1 because this is opposite to that node 1. Therefore, this area is equal to 1. Opposite to the node 2, this area is equal to 2. Opposite to this node 3, this area is equal to A3. Therefore, if I split this total area A into 3 parts, A1, A2, A3 respectively, then the shape functions can also be written using area coordinate system. This is the third coordinate system, which is called area coordinate system, students. I hope you are understanding, right? N1 is equal to A1 by A, N2 is equal to A2 by A, N3 is equal to A3 by A, means a fraction of the area, right? Always A1 by A, A2 by A, A3 by A are less than or equal to 1 in the worst case, right? That is all given by the fifth equation. And 9 will also check whether n1 plus n2 plus n3, yes, a1 plus a2 plus a3 divided by a. However, numerator is also a, therefore 1 by 1 is equal to 1. Hence, the check that the summation of all the shape functions must be a unity. That is how we got a check. And there is also check the same using the local coordinate system. Yes, we have n1 plus n2 plus n3 means xi plus eta plus 1 minus xi minus eta. Minus xi plus xi cancels, minus eta plus eta cancels. Only what is now left is 1. Here also in the local coordinate system, n1 plus n2 plus n3 is satisfied. Is it clear, students? Right? Then that is how the check for local coordinate system as well as in area coordinate system. Once we do that, then we'll move to the isoparametric formulations. Right there, isoparametric means iso means same, parameter means the shape function, right? The same shape function of the same order which was used to interpolate the displacement will also be used to interpolate the geometry. This formulation is what called isoparametric formulation. Isoparametric formulation, right? Now, let's first write the displacements, right? Therefore, the displacement at an interior point P is now given by U as shape function n1 multiplied with its displacement, degree of freedom, q1, right? Shape function n2 and corresponding to that the degree of freedom in x direction, q3, and the shape function 3 and its displacement in x direction, q5. Similarly, the displacement at a point P in vertical direction or y direction is for that node 1, n1 multiplied by q2, n2 multiplied by q4, n3 multiplied by q6, all q1, q3, q5 are the displacements or degrees of freedoms in x direction, and q2, q4, q6 are the displacements in the vertical directions respectively. Therefore, we are interpolating using all those horizontal displacements at those nodes. By multiplying the shape function values, we are getting the displacement in that corresponding direction, either in x or y, notated by u and v respectively. Let it be given by equation 6. However, here by this time we already know what are q1, q2, q3, q5, q6, and we also know what are the shape functions, because at what point you want to interpolate the displacement is already predefined. Therefore, once you know these, the unknown displacement at that location, at that point P, can be evaluated, right? That is how the displacement vector is generally notated by u or u bar or u arrow. All are same, which is 2 by 1 vector given by uv transpose, right? Then also the equation, the above equation, sixth equation, can also be written in terms of matrix multiplication as n1 multiplied by q1, 0 multiplied by q2, because q2 is the displacement in y direction, right? It will not be used to interpolate the displacement in x direction, right? Similarly, n2 multiplied by q3, and 0 multiplied by q4, n3 multiplied by q5, 0 multiplied by q6. Similarly, v, I'll get 0 multiplied by q1 and n1 multiplied by q2. Similarly, 0 multiplied by q3, n2 multiplied by q4, 0 multiplied by q5, n3 multiplied by q6. Hence, u is equal to written as n multiplied by q, where n is called the shape function matrix, which is a matrix 2 by 6, notated by n, and its size is equal to 2 rows by 6 columns, right? Given by n1 0, n2 0, n3 0, 0 n1 0, n2 0, n3, right? And where q is the nodal or element displacement vector, which is 6 by 1 vector, right? This is the seventh equation. Now, let us substitute this equation 2, 3, and 4 in this equation 6. That what is n1, what is n2, what is n3, means n1 is equal to xi, n2 is equal to eta, and n3 is equal to 1 xi minus eta. Therefore, substituting with, now I'll get this displacement in x direction given by xi q1, eta q3 plus 1 minus xi minus eta multiplied by q5. Similarly, v, xi q2 plus eta q4 plus 1 minus xi minus eta multiplied by q6, right? Now, let us isolate these in terms of some constant multiplied by polynomial xi and some constant multiplied by polynomial eta, right? Hence u is nothing but, from the above equation I can say q1 minus q5 multiplied by xi, right? q3 minus q5 multiplied by eta plus q5. And in a cyclic fashion you can say v is equal to q2 minus q6 xi, q4 minus q6 eta, q6, right? Cyclic means q1 will become q2, q5 will become q6, right? q3 will become plus 1, 5 will become plus 1, right? That is our cyclic fashion, right? Let us say this as the equation, eighth equation, which is the displacement equation, displacement function otherwise, right? Then isoparametric formulation, the same shape function of the same order which was used to interpolate, the displacements, the displacements will also be used to interpolate the geometry, that is how it is now called as isoparametric formulation. Means n is equal to the same shape function n1 and multiplied by its Cartesian coordinate at node 1 x1, n2 multiplied by x2 plus n3 multiplied by x3, or it can be written as summation of ni xi. And in a similar fashion we can say y is equal to n1 y1 n2 y2 plus n3 y3, or summation of ni yi. This is called the isoparametric formulation, right? Then substituting n1, n2, n3 in terms of xi, eta, and 1 minus xi minus eta, as you have seen for the displacements. Now I can write that x will become x1 minus x3 multiplied by xi, x2 minus x3 multiplied by eta plus x3, and y1 minus y3 multiplied by xi, y2 minus y3 multiplied by eta plus y3. Let it be given by ninth equation, and let us use this notation that xij means xi minus xj, yij means yi minus yj. This 10th equation, using this notation, the above ninth equation can be written as x is equal to x13 means x1 minus x3 multiplied by xi, x23 eta x3, y is equal to y13 xi, y23 eta plus y3. Let it be 11th equation. That is how the isoparametric formulation, students, I hope you are understanding. Okay, then once we do that, let us move to the next derivation as the strain displacement relationship, right? That is all. The derivation of the strain displacement matrix B is like this, right? That we already know that epsilon x is equal to dou u by dou x, right? In Cartesian coordinate system. But however, u, displacement u, is a function of the Cartesian coordinates x and y, which they themselves are the functions of the local coordinates xi and eta respectively. That is how the function u, or the displacement function u. Displacement function u is a function of x, which in turn a function of local coordinate system xi and eta. Also y, a function of xi and eta. Because of this function u and v, we can say that dou u by dou x cannot be directly obtained. I must use the chain rule of differentiation, as dou u by dou x is nothing but dou u by dou xi, because now u is directly related with xi. We have already seen in the previous equation that u was given by this, u is equal to q1 minus q5 multiplied by xi, right? By this equation 8, and as well as from equation 9, that u, v, and as well as x and y are directly functions of xi and eta respectively. Hence, I can differentiate this u directly with respect to xi, not with respect to x. However, I have relation between local and global degrees of freedoms. Then I can differentiate them, right? That is how dou xi by dou x, right? Dou u by dou xi multiplied by dou xi by dou x plus dou u by dou eta, because u not only depends upon x but also depends upon y, right? Y displacements also, right? Therefore, dou eta by dou u by dou eta by dou x. And similarly, the normal strain in y direction is given by which is given by dou v by dou y, is now given by this chain rule of differentiation as dou v by dou xi by dou y plus dou v by dou eta by dou y. And third one, the shearing strain mu xy is equal to dou u by dou y, dou v by dou x, cross terms, right? Using chain rule of differentiation, we can say dou u by dou xi multiplied by dou xi by dou y plus dou u by dou eta by dou y plus dou v by dou xi by dou x plus dou v by dou eta by dou x. Dou y. Sorry, student, this is dou x because this is with respect to x, right? Dou x, right? Therefore, that is how. Now, I'll recall this. Instead of u, even you can have v or any function f. Therefore, I'll recall dou f by dou xi, dou f by dou eta, dou f by dou xi, dou f by dou eta, where f is equal to u or where f is equal to v, right? Or as appropriate, right? Then that is how dou u by dou xi and dou u by dou eta. Just recall these equations. I am putting that in matrix format, students, as dou u by dou xi and dou u by dou eta, which is 2 by 1 matrix, can be written as dou x by dou xi, dou y by dou xi, operated upon dou u by dou x, dou u by dou y. Please see that dou x by dou xi operated upon dou u by dou x, dou y by dou xi operated upon dou u by dou y is what that first equation. Similarly, the second equation is dou u by dou eta is nothing but dou x by dou eta multiplied by dou u by dou xi, dou x, sorry, dou y by dou eta multiplied by dou y by dou y. That is how this 2 by 1 vector is written as a product of matrices of two matrices 2 by 2 operated upon 2 by 1 matrix, right? Let us say this as the 13th equation, where this 2 by 2 matrix is called a Jacobian matrix, notated by J, right? J, where that Jacobian matrix is given by dou x by dou xi, dou y by dou xi, first row. The second row is dou x by dou eta, dou y by dou eta. Let us say this as equation 14. Similarly, instead of u, even if I put any function f or v, it won't change. If we are putting here f, the function f, v, then here on the other matrix that will change. Therefore, the Jacobian matrix is not going to change because of that, right? That is all. Then even if you say instead of this, if you put w, there is no change, right? Dou w by dou x, dou w by dou y. That is how the functional function, whatever that function is there in that first matrix, shall also be there in the last matrix, right? Let us say this Jacobian is given by this 14th equation. Then next, what is the use of the Jacobian, students? What is the use? Is that this Jacobian matrix will transform the strain terms from local coordinate system to global coordinate system, right? That is the use of the Jacobian matrix. That is a utility, that the Jacobian matrix will be used to transform the strain terms from local coordinate system to global coordinate system. This is important function, right? Utility. And we already know that dou x given by this equation, we already know that x is given by this equation 11 as x13 xi, x23 eta plus x3, right? y13 xi, y23 eta plus this one. Therefore, now you differentiate that x with respect to xi. What now you do have is that x13 is there, right? Similarly, you differentiate that x with eta. What you do have is x23. Similarly, dou y by dou xi, from that equation 11, I do have only y13, dou y by dou eta, y23. Therefore, substituting those differentiations in this equation 14, I do have the Jacobian given by this as x13 y13, x23 y23, first and second rows respectively, right? Means x1 minus x3, y1 minus y3, x2 minus x3, y2 minus y3. Please see that this Jacobian is a constant matrix for this 2D 3-node continuum, element, 2D 3-node element. This is a constant, right? Sometimes asked, it may be asked that whether a Jacobian for 2D 3-node element, is it a constant matrix? Then the answer is yes. It is given by x13, y13, x23, y23 students. Fine. Then similarly, now I'll go to this equation 13. I'll now try to invert this equation 13 as if I want to get only what is dou u by dou x, dou u by dou y. Therefore, it is nothing but Jacobian inverse multiplied by dou u by dou xi. Dou u by dou xi, dou u by dou eta given by this equation. Therefore, now I'll substitute what is Jacobian. It's inverse, right? Therefore, I do know Jacobian j. Its inverse is nothing but 1 by det j. 1 by det j means this x13 multiplied by y23 minus x23 minus y13. That we already know. Det j. 1 by det j multiplied by a, b, c, d will become a minus b minus c. Sorry, d minus b minus c, a. Right? That is how these will swap. This will swap. This will become with minus sign. Right? Therefore, that is how the Jacobian inverse. Jacobian inverse j inverse is 1 by det j y23 minus y13 minus x23 x13 operated upon dou u by dou j dou u by dou eta. Say this has 15th equation. Then this is what I already discussed, that the importance or utility of the Jacobian is that it transforms the strain terms from Cartesian coordinate system to the global coordinate system is one utility. The second utility is that it can also be used to find the area of this triangle. It can also be used, right? How the area of the triangle from the Cartesian coordinate systems can be written for the triangle having x1 y1 x2 y2 x3 y3 as the Cartesian coordinates as half x1 multiplied by y2 minus y3 plus x2 multiplied by y3 minus y1 plus x3 multiplied by y1 minus y2. That we already know. Or using that notation, y2 minus y3 is notated by y23. The area of the triangle is given by this equation, half x1 y23 plus x2 y31 plus x3 y12 y12, right? Therefore, that is how now we do have that determinant given by this equation x13 multiplied by y23 minus y13 multiplied by x23. Just recalling that. Therefore, x1 minus x3 multiplied by y23, x2 minus x3 multiplied by y13. But this is x1 multiplied by y23 minus x3 multiplied by y23, x2 multiplied by y13, minus of minus plus x3 multiplied by y13. Now what I'll do is I'll take this x1 multiplied by y23 plus this x2 multiplied by y13 can be written as y13 can be written as minus y31. Therefore, minus of minus plus, it will become plus. Hence, plus y31. Now, what are the terms that are left? Only with x3. X3 are x3 y13 y13 minus y23, right? This term, right? Therefore, y13 means y1 minus y3 minus y2 plus y3. Then that becomes 3 gets cancelled. Y1 minus y2 is x3 multiplied by y12, right? Therefore, this is how the determinant j, determinant of the Jacobian is given by this equation B. Therefore, from this equation A and B, what now I can say? What I can say or I can conclude is that this determinant J is 2 times the area, or area is nothing but half the determinant J. Area is nothing but half the determinant this J, because this is the determinant J, right? That is how the utility of the Jacobian, it can be used to calculate the area of the given 2D 3-node triangle. Likewise for the other elements also, we'll see that, right? Now I'll go to that equation 13, which is this equation dou u by dou xi, and dou u by dou eta is x13 y13 x23 y23 multiplied by dou u by dou x dou u by dou y. Then also similarly from equation 15, I can say that dou u by dou x dou u by dou y is nothing but Jacobian inverse dou u by dou xi dou u by dou eta. And from equation 8, I do have dou u by dou xi. Dou u by dou xi is nothing but q1 minus q5 multiplied by that xi. Xi will be keys. Therefore, q1 minus q5 is left. Similarly, dou u by dou eta is q3 minus q5. Now I'll substitute that here. Hence, dou u by dou x, dou u by dou y in the above equation. Now this becomes, right, on the right hand side, I'll substitute that q1 minus q5, q3 minus q5. This is already Jacobian inverse, right? Therefore, now I'll expand, right? Similarly, I can write if I change that function u to v, hardly the same function will change on the other side of that matrix, right? Then v will become v. That's all, right? But we already know that dou v by dou xi is nothing but q2 minus q6, and similarly dou v by dou eta is nothing but q4 minus q6. Therefore, substituting both of this, now I have to have these two simultaneous equations. Now these are two simultaneous equations. These are two more equations. I have to have in total 1, 2, 3, 4 equations given by these two vectors. Therefore, using those 4 equations, now I'll write what is the strain matrix or vector given by epsilon x, epsilon y, mu xy, which is given by dou u by dou x, dou v by dou y, dou u by dou y plus dou v by dou x transpose. And so, what is dou u by dou x? Dou u by dou x is nothing but this first equation. This first equation means 1 by det j y23 multiplied by q1 minus q5 minus y13 multiplied by q3 minus q5. That is what the direct strain. Similarly, the direct strain along that y-axis is given by dou v by dou y is nothing but 1 by det j multiplied by minus x23 multiplied by dou v by dou xi and x13 multiplied by dou v by dou eta. And these two simultaneous equations will contribute to the shearing strain, that dou u by dou y plus dou v by dou x. These two equations, second equation and third equation, its summation is the third one, right? And so now I'll do the same, right? That is how that dou u by dou x is multiplied y1 y23 operated upon q1 minus q5 minus y13 operated upon q3 minus q5, right? Minus x23 multiplied, right? That is how dou u by dou y minus x23 multiplied by q1 minus q5 plus x13 q3 minus q5, and the second set of vector leads to two more simultaneous equations, 1 by det j y23 q2 minus q6 minus y13 q4 minus q6 and minus x23 q2 minus q6 x13 q4 minus q6. That is our equation 1, 2, 3, 4. 4 equations I got. Therefore, from this now I'll try to put this in a vector, a matrix format, that epsilon, which is a 3 by 1 vector, students, right? Vector 3 by 1 vector. Here you can see that I do have q1, q2, q3 dash dash up to q6. Therefore, now I'll take on the right hand side a vector q1 by q6, which is of 6 by 1 size, Hence, now I'll multiply with a matrix 3 by 6 over this size is 6 by 1. Then only I'll get this matrix 3 by 1. Hence, that is how that dou u by dou x, first one is dou u by dou x is nothing but 1 by det j. When I'm putting this first equation 1 by det j y23 multiplied by q1, you please see y23 multiplied by q1, right? Same y23 multiplied by minus q5, right? Here q5, right? Similarly, you please see 0 multiplied by q2, right? And the next term is minus y13 multiplied by q3, minus y13 multiplied by q3, but minus y13 can be written as y31, and I do have here q5 terms, 2 terms, right? y23, sorry, minus y23 means y32 plus y13, right? That gives y12 operated upon q5, 0 multiplied by q6, right? That is how I'll put this first equation, first row in this matrix, which is the first row of this 3 by 6 matrix operated upon 6 by 1 matrix, right? Then you'll get the direct strain along x direction. Similarly, you do the same for the y direction. Then you'll get this 0 multiplied by q1, x32 multiplied by q2, 0 multiplied by q3, x13 multiplied by q4, 0 multiplied by q5, x21 multiplied by q5. Then you can see here these second and third equations also you recall and put here q1 means minus x23 means is nothing but x32, right? Likewise, you please do it now becomes x32 multiplied by q1, y23 multiplied by q2, x13 multiplied by q3, x31 multiplied by q4, x21 multiplied by q5, x12 multiplied by q6. Or alternatively, what you can do is, if you know this y23, cyclically you can write here the cross term as x32, right? Y31, cyclically you can write here, instead of 31 you can say 13, y12, in a cyclic fashion you can add x21, but here you want those cross terms, therefore this x y2 you bring and paste here, and this x32 you bring and paste here. You do the same for others, right? You just bring and paste this one here, here, right? Here, right? That is how the last row can be obtained, right? And so now I do have this strain displacement relationship given by epsilon 3 by 1 vector is given by this B matrix, which is 3 by 1 vector matrix operated upon Q 6 by 1 vector, where B is called the strain displacement matrix. This is given by this vector 1 by det j, y230, y310, 0, y120, 0, y320, x13, 0, x32, 0, x13, 0, x21, x32, y23, x13, y31, y21, y12. Let us say this as the next 22nd equation. You please see that this strain displacement matrix has only the constant terms. Y2 minus y3 is a constant. Similarly, x3 minus x2, everything is constant in this matrix. Hence, this sometimes is the strain displacement matrix is called the constant strain triangle. Right? Students, I hope you understood what is the strain displacement matrix for 2D 3-node triangular elements, right? Thank you, students, for watching this video on 2D 3-node triangles. In the next class, we shall meet with the continuation of this second part, right? If you like this video, you try to subscribe to our YouTube channel. Thank you. We'll meet in the next session, in the next video. Till then, bye-bye.